All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us tonight for what is going to be an inspirational book chat with Dr. Brandon Beck and his book, Unlocking Unlimited Potential. My name is Melody McAllister, and if this is your first time joining us tonight, or you join us every chance you get, I want to thank you. You can catch this live broadcast every Wednesday from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can also catch the replay on these same channels. I want to especially thank Alice Keeler for giving us her platform for these broadcasts and shining a spotlight on the work of incredible people. Tonight, we'll be discussing a book that highlights teacher and student confidence. What are the ideas and actions that lead to more efficacy and build supportive communities? How important is culturally responsive teaching, and what is its relationship with social emotional learning? How important is music and storytelling, and what are the things that reach all learners, especially English language learners? Dr. Beck, it is so great to have you here tonight. You're doing so much, so I appreciate you taking the time tonight to share about this powerful message of your book. How are you, and can you tell us about your background?
Well, first of all, that was some amazing essential questions. I'm going to steal those. I just want to let you know, but thank you so much. So I am an author at Codebreaker. I am what I call a monolingual bilingual educator. It's a term that I made up. There's a story about it in my book. I'm sure we'll get into it further today. So I teach in a dual language program, and I teach the English zone. And I've been doing that for about 10 of the last 20 years in education. And I have a wide range of experience in education. I'm also a soccer coach. I'm also a private business owner in my area. And I also run an organization that is pretty much a soccer school, like to think of it. And it's about ranging from managing about 2,500 families, ages 4 to 23. So, that I'm in Westchester County, New York. So I'm literally about 25 minutes with no traffic outside New York City. So I'm in a suburb. I teach in a really unique, diverse area. I've had the opportunity to teach in New York City public schools. I've also had the opportunity to now I teach in a school district which borders the district that has a lot of affluential families and a lot of families that are living and working in Manhattan. So the town that I work in is actually a town that has about a 65% Hispanic Latino, about 80+% free and reduced lunch. So, and they border that town that has, really has not much as much of a wide range of diversity in the socioeconomic status. So it's a unique experience. I'm a product of a 35-year and a 37-year teacher. Shout out to mom and dad, 72 years in the business. So together we're almost at 100 as a family. So I'm kind of pushing for that. So that was also an incredible part of my experience as well. But I'm here. COVID gave me some time to write something and put things into motion. And it's been a wild ride. It's been an amazing story. And Unlocking Unlimited Potential is what I believe to be what my life's work has been and what my calling has become.
I love that. And I know your parents have got to be so proud of you. And I really enjoyed the storytelling aspect of your book, where you talked about, like, you really do. First of all, you're a dad and a husband as well. So you've got like this family dynamic that is constantly going. You've got littles, like you're not like, you've got little ones. And but you're constantly improving your game, and your game on the field and your game in the classroom. I really respect that. And so I know your parents must be so proud. So you're saying that it was the pandemic that got you to slow down and write it all down?
Well, it wasn't necessarily the pandemic that got me to begin writing it. I'd been writing it for 3 years. Since I defended my dissertation back in 2017, the work that I had done in my dissertation was such a leap into a place that I was really uncomfortable with. And I wanted to see if I could do the work that an expert does and try to put in that amount of effort and create research in an area that I was really not feeling 100% successful. And that being a teacher of English language learners, my dissertation was basically along the lines of the influence of professional development on teachers of L's. So basically, if you teach L's, which the majority of the United States does, because you have at least one person in your classroom that is from another country or from another language background, like it's all kind of related in a general sense, in my opinion. And it led me down a path into really trying to find out what it takes to be a really great teacher of L's, and really collecting and working through the research. And most importantly, what came out of it was this whole idea of self-efficacy, like belief in yourself. I'm a huge reader of Tony Robbins, Rachel Hollis, Brene Brown, Jack Canfield. The list goes on and on and on. So for me, it's all about just that whole kind of connecting it all and putting all the pieces together and just being really, pointed and focused and on the journey.
I love that. And thank you, Rochelle, for saying something. If you're watching and you have any questions, please say hello. Let us know, what you're thinking. I hope that we hear from you.
We got a special surprise if they make it to the end, right?
Yes.
We got to tell them that.
Yes,
we can at least
do.
Teaser.
Oh my gosh, there is something so wonderful that's going to happen at the end. You have to stick around, okay? So yes, thank you for coming. And let us know that you're here. We love that. And oh my gosh, I was just going to say something and it just lost my head because I got so excited about the end. But you're talking about English language learners, and you're right. Everybody has at least one, but if you think about it in the terms, as a teacher, we're teaching language all the time. So a lot of the ideas that you share in your book are that the things that make you a better teacher as a monolingual teacher for your bilingual students are actually what makes you better for every single learner in your classroom. And I love how you do that with fidelity. And I think that is something that I also believe that we can put into practice. The things that you do, even as a monolingual learner. Now, have you dived into your bilingual, to try to learn a different language at all?
So there's a whole story behind that. And when I was, and I had this in the book and I removed it because it was part of another chapter. But when I was in middle school, I was diagnosed with a learning disability, and I did say that actually in the book, as I was talking about, right. I was diagnosed with, and I think it's a learning disability I had the entire time. And when I say diagnosed, I mean, it was just finally discovered and came into fruition. And it made it difficult for me to process languages, specifically another foreign language. And so I would really need to buckle down and do it. And I can do it. But when I was 13, 14 years old, I just didn't have it in me. It was school was not a great place. I didn't love school all the time. Even though I had both my parents as teachers because they taught in the same school district. But it was, that whole part of it was, so for me, the whole learning a language, I can really speak great Spanish on a soccer field. But other than that, that was my whole thing. So it kind of was, if I have this difficulty and I can't necessarily learn a language, then why should I let that stop me from doing what I believe and working with students from other cultures? Like I had the opportunity to study abroad in New Zealand when I was in college. I had the opportunity to travel a lot with my family being teachers, and my family also ran a international exchange program. So cultures were always a big part of my life, and I always saw great value in them.
I love that, which kind of leads us naturally into what I want to talk about next, because this is my favorite part of your book. And really, it's my favorite part because I felt like yes, like this is what we need to have more in our public schools. The intersection, you talk about this, the intersection of culturally responsive teaching, and a lot of times we call it CRT, but right now there's a lot of just, it can be blown out of proportion, but we're talking about culturally responsive teaching and social emotional learning. There is totally an intersection. And so tell us a little bit, like why you decided to put this in here and how much it means to you or to your teaching altogether.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things that I discovered in my research was about how there was a lack of professional development for culture. And there was a wide range of understanding of what it meant to teach culture. And there was a lot of disbelief, and there was also a lot of self-limiting beliefs that people were encountering that really they weren't necessarily sure how to overcome. And so the whole culturally responsive teaching, social emotional learning, character education, growth mindset, all of that is about knowing the person in front of you. All of that is about really taking the time as an educator to get to know your students, inside and outside. And I think, sometimes we put things in education in silos, and, SEL and culturally responsive teaching are now kind of sort of starting to intersect because of COVID and all the things that we've learned about ourselves as educators and the whole idea of equity. And I keep saying this over and over again. It's just like we're waiting now to 2020, and now we're talking about in our classrooms that social emotional learning is important. Mental well-being is most important. Character education, making sure these kids are college, but also career ready. And so for me, it really, they're all together. They're all connected. They're all interconnected. And it's basically like social emotional learning is like the growth mindset of culturally responsive teaching. I mean, you can play around with the words in any way you want, but they're all connected because it's all about understanding the individuals in front of you. Equity is really a lot also about understanding how I see things and how you see things, and how do we talk about that uncomfortable space in between that, so that we can just develop an understanding of our biases and where we are maybe misinterpreting things. And it's just all about getting to know yourself. And the problem is a lot of kids nowadays who are in front of screens, or not necessarily, this whole idea of going into COVID and how we were all segregated into our classrooms or separated and into our own individual homes and everywhere else, we lost that opportunity for connection. So making sure that connection and culturally responsive teaching and really getting kids to understand, that side of it is what I believe to be really critical for educators now and always.
For real. I love that, because honestly, can you have social emotional learning without also being culturally responsive? It's like if you're leaving out that, then you're not really having social emotional learning. If you're leaving out that, you don't really have a growth mindset. A lot of the research we're reading right now is that even the growth mindset can be used as a way to punish kids when we don't use it correctly, or when we don't look at children or our students like holistically. And so I really do appreciate all that you said about that, because it needs to be said, and it needs to be adopted all over the place. And I'm taking some notes while you're talking. But really, your book too is all about the disbelief and the self-limiting talk that we as teachers and educators have, because we put that onto our students in the classroom. And so that's what we're dealing with here. What has the response been? I know we didn't rehearse this, but what's the response been when teachers are reading this?
Amazing. I'm seeing pictures of the book in Australia, in Japan, in Canada, in amazing educators' hands. People like you are saying you want to read it and talk to me about it. The connections have been amazing. You got to understand something is I was in a place, before this book was written, I have national board certification. I have a doctorate in educational leadership, but I wasn't feeling 100% effective because I was trying to follow and stay up with people. And I felt like at some part of it all that I just kind of lost the fun in that. And it's not necessary. I'm not blaming my school. I mean, we're human. I'm talking about just my life in general. There were just certain things and certain things that happen in our lives that really deeply affect the way we perform and the way we feel about ourselves. And I've been teaching the same grade for about 10 years. And but I'm in an amazing position. And I was looking at the situation that I was in and saying, well, oh, I want something different, or maybe I want to move grades. And I think I just kind of found more joy in the journey. All the things that I do talk about in my book, I do my best to stay true to and to walk the talk. And, you know, one particular thing is just really having a clarity in defining my purpose. Like my purpose, I can say verbatim because I say it every day, is I believe in the inner genius of humans. And that to me is what it's all about, to be able to go from being in a classroom to now standing in front of educators and being able to have an educator who may feel like they lost a little bit of that fire, but all of a sudden I can have a small piece of helping them, whether it's a post on Twitter or whether it's a shout out here, or whether it's a note in the mail, whatever it is, or whether it's a podcast or being on something like this. If I can just help one person, then to me, it's all worth it.
Mm-hmm. And something that you wrote about, I loved. You put the purpose and your core values in your room. You talk about it every day, and I love that. I think it's good. It's good to have that that mentality when you welcome in the new day, and your students are always knowing what you're about. And as a family, I kind of do that as well. I absolutely love that. And so one thing is, if you're watching, Brent, tell us a little bit about that, will you? Because it's a good thing anybody can do, like in this moment. It doesn't have to be fancy.
Justin, you said a couple different things. So in terms of which part of what you said?
Of like your core beliefs and your values on the door, like you have it every morning and you say it to yourself.
Yeah. So real quick tip. I mean, it's in the book as one of the ASIs, the action steps for immediate implementation. So basically at the beginning of the year or whenever point or whenever you want to do it, you got to find a way for your kids to establish a set of values, a set of words that represent them, that represent you. And you may, one way that I do it and one way that I talk about the way that I do it with other educators and other teachers and other students is, you start with a list of like 8 to 10, depending on the age and the comprehension level of the vocabulary. And you talk through those 8 to 10, talk about what they mean. And then the kids vote. And then they vote and you take the top 3, and you can even have them vote more than once. And those words become the fabric of our time together. And they have to be placed in the door. They have to be talked about in some capacity every single day. And, for example, the students, one particular group of students I worked with, theirs were respect, honesty, and being kind and polite. And every day, those words became the fabric of our conversation. So it's not about creating behavior plans. It's about managing behavior, because we understand that at the core of this, and it's not just funny words, it's just, we all walk it, we all talk about it, we all overstep it. And sometimes we got to be brought back in and reeled back in so that we can just be reminded of what it means that we just did.
I love it. And it's always something to go back to the foundation of your class, the core of what you believe. All right, now it is time. Did you decide what you wanted to read? I love it when the authors read.
I'm going to read something small. How's that? I'm going to give a little piece of it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So this is a stop and jot. So the book has stop and jots, and it also has action steps for immediate implementation. The idea with the book was that you could read a chapter and you could walk away and you could do something, try something, think about it, tweak it, make it better for you and for your students and for your classroom and for your educators. And so the whole idea behind the action steps was that you could also come back to the book later on. And I know a lot of people say that they do that, is that they come back to the book later on. So one particular part in the chapter titled Culturally Responsive Teaching is Our Future. It's a stop and jot. In order to be a successful culturally responsive teacher, you must commit to 3 simple actions. Number 1, look within. Ask yourself, what is my perception of culture? Write a few notes about your experiences with other cultures and which cultural beliefs you notice in your school. How much have you included these in your classroom or school in the past? Number 2, integrate culture by connecting it to the curriculum, instruction, projects, assessments, assignments, etc. Jot down some potential places that you can include cultural connections in your upcoming plans. Discuss them with colleagues and commit to some ideas from the ASIs at the end of the chapter and use them immediately with your students. 3, use this cultural knowledge about the students to make connections between the home, school, and community. Now that you have all that important information about your students, use it to help you make connections with your families, create service projects, make positive phone calls home weekly, use Google Translate to write notes to families that speak languages other than English. Try your hardest. Invite families in to discuss their job, home, their home life, or experiences growing up in the USA or another country.
Yes, I love that. I love that. I actually, number 3 is my favorite. I have a heart around it. And I love that you acknowledged how important it is for families of your students to be incorporated and included in everything that you're doing in the classroom. So kudos to you. I think it's brilliant. And we're getting closer. And yes, it is. And I love it. It excites me. How does it feel when you read your own words?
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
I had a book inside of me for a while, and it took me a long time to get there. And that book that was inside of me that I had been that was kind of pieces of my dissertation that I had. And then I started just really everything became this book, this Unlocking Unlimited Potential. And I started to watch movies like The Karate Kid, and I'd start taking notes. Oh, that's a great example of someone who does it. And all these books I was reading just started to fall into my plate. Books like Legacy by James Kerr. Just books, like The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. These amazing books that just kept falling onto my path. And I just wanted to also use the research and use that work to kind of keep the wheels turning.
I love that. And when you read your own words, you have to live by them because you don't want to be a hypocrite. So that is also a part of writing and being genuine. So
those ideas, those 3 ideas came from the work that I do on a regular basis. I do that work with educators. The other funny thing is that the monolingual guy who didn't have an ESL certification or a bilingual extension now teaches a class in a university for educators getting their TESOL and bilingual certification. And I'm still monolingual. And so I've used this book. Actually, my students read this book because of the section about the pyramid and about this section about culturally responsive teaching. And the pyramid is about, the self-efficacy of teachers' bells, which is really, a whole nother conversation, but that's part of it because, and it's an important book for all educators to read no matter where they are in the process.
I love it. Love it. All right. If you have been with us, you knew something exciting was going to happen closer to the end, and now it is here. And if you have followed me at all on any sort of social media, you know that I love to sing. They didn't name me Melody for just anything. I don't know that I'll be able to join Dr. Beck today in whatever song he does, but something that you talk about in your book is that you play songs and the power of music is important to you. Tell us a little bit about how you utilize music and then play us something, please.
Oh my God, music is important for me. I use it in many different ways. Whether I'm teaching my students and I just went through, some of those important directions or those important points, and then I kind of walk around, I'm like, look it up, look within, and I'll just kind of just talk. And sometimes maybe it's motivational, and sometimes maybe it's repeating main points or information that are important to them, just kind of putting it in another way as I bop around the classroom. I also, if there's information they need to know, like the song by Bob Dylan, drip, 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 the circulatory system is knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. For example, like the song by Sublime, like Lovin' is what I got. Lovin' is what I got. Remember that. So it's like, that's the decimal song. And so it's like tens, hundreds, and thousands. And then they chant it back. 10,000s and so on. And then they're like, 10,000s. You got to do it now. You ready? So you repeat what I say. We can do this.
I have to do it?
We can do this. You ready? Let's see.
Yeah.
Tens, hundreds, and thousands. You got to do that part.
10 hundreds, 10 thousands. I didn't know what you said. I'm sorry. Here,
it is. It's hard to hear. So
you're way better.
I'm saying that the places of the decimals. So tenths, hundredths, and thousands.
Yes. Oh, okay. Tens, hundreds, thousands. We can do this.
We can do this.
10 hundreds and thousands.
Oh, there it is. I like it. And then I just go 10,000s and so on.
10,000s and so on.
This is working. We don't want to make this song too long.
Definitely don't make us fall asleep. No, you wouldn't. I love it. Rochelle says woo-hoo. That's great. Hey, Jillian.
Yeah, so that's, and I also use it to when I use songs and poetry and songs that are important to, I have like a playlist that I like to play. Let me see if I can play one. So this is a good one for students. This is like my pandemic song. And I will fight for you. I always do until my heart is black and blue. So this song is by Andy Grammer, and you might have heard it before. So it's I lift my hands up and wait for yours to until like I wait for you. So it's like, I'm not giving up. So I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down on my knees. Even when they say it can't be done easily. So don't give up on me.
Oh, I love that.
I forget how to play a lot of these songs too, but what I try to do is use another song so that I remember how to play it. But there's a lot of great songs that can be used in education, and those are a few. Do you need any more?
I feel like if I could sing with you. I really enjoyed that, and even though I felt silly, I want to say, I don't know if you see this. Carly says that she recently heard you speak and she ordered your book, and Jillian says, "What a great time!" Yes. And I just want to say, for people who don't really have a great voice or don't have an instrument, kids don't really care. I don't know about you, but I sing all the time, and sometimes I sound really terrible, but it's okay. Like, kids just don't care. They just want to have fun.
And dance. If you can dance, that is also helpful. Even if you don't know how to dance.
Or if you can't dance. Exactly. Oh, this is what Jillian also says about you, that you're a poet, teacher, coach, musician, author, girl dad. Is there anything? Oh, she has a nickname. BB can't do. Yes. Oh,
shout out to Jillian.
I think Michelle's talking about me. Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. And so, if I like your songs. So you're talking about academic area, but you're also going into the SEL. I think it's beautiful. I'm just curious. I wrote this question down. Do you ever get mad at yourself for forgetting a really awesome song that you thought of on the moment, and then you can't think of it later? Does that ever happen to you?
Of course. Like right now, I forgot how to play like 2 songs anyways. But my point is, the hard part about it is exactly it's trying to remember the songs. But what's really interesting is that when you can get students to take like things like your values and write songs, a classroom song, like a classroom song session is empowering and is binding together, even if it's like a parody. And it's a nice way to kind of connect yourselves and connect each other and have a little fun in the process.
I agree. Do a lot of your students that have grown up, when they come back, do they tell you about the different songs that you've sang together?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because it's so funny because in my in one of the schools that I used to work in as an educator, we used to have this talent show, and we would always create a song for the talent show. But my favorite teaching movie is School of Rock, and Jack Black, I think, is the reason I became a teacher. Yes. I know he wasn't the greatest teacher ever, but I don't know, something about him. I just liked him. And however, he, the thing is with School of Rock is at the end of the movie School of Rock, they play this song by AC/DC, and it's basically you get a long way to the top and you gotta rock and roll. Anyway, so I forget the name of it once again. Someone can probably type it in the chat. It's A Long Way to the Top. I think that's what it's called. And I basically had my class do it. And I had a friend of mine who worked at a guitar store nearby, and he came and he played. And what happened was then I set everybody else up like playing fake instruments and fake dances. And it was hilarious. I had this kid who was like 3 feet tall playing the bass. But it was stuff like that.
Yes. I love it. Do you, I am, it's so hard for me. I'm like, do you know any Eddie Rabbitt songs? I'm terrible. I'm like, let's keep playing. But we are coming, we've actually gone a little bit past. But I feel like maybe we should have a special section of when we can do this again, and we'll rehearse a little bit, and maybe you can teach us more songs. I know Rochelle will probably want to have you on our Thrive In Edu broadcast, and we can just dedicate it all to the importance of music. I love that you dedicate so much of your day to music, and I think it's what kids remember, or students remember. And so I want to thank you for joining us this week. Tell us, what is the best way to connect with you before we go?
Yeah, everything is real simple at Brandon Beck EDU. And that is also my website, brandonbeckedu.com.
I'm going to put that on here. And I also have that going across the screen. But definitely find him. And I just appreciate so much the enthusiasm that you have, the willingness to grow and learn and share that with everybody. I love that about you. I enjoyed reading your book. I didn't fall asleep at all. Like, I just read right through it. And I read a lot of books. So I really appreciate that. You're a great storyteller. And do you have any last words that you want to share before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I mean, I just have to say I appreciate you for taking the time. Anybody who takes the time to read, 210 pages of my life is, it deserves a thanks. And I don't always get a chance to talk to every single person that reads the book. And I appreciate you getting on, and your questions were spot on, and all the things that you got out of the book to me just makes me feel really good. So thanks for that. And I hope that others continue to enjoy it.
Definitely. And I just want to say, definitely follow Brandon. If you get his book and you love it, or any author in your life, make sure to go give him a 5-star review. That's how you tell authors that you love them. I'm going to put our outro on. And I put all the books that I read in one place on Amazon to make it easy. I will drop his book link one more time before I go, because I think it is so wonderful that he is here, especially that he played music. Not everybody can do that on the spot, and you were amazing. But yes, check out his book, and if you love it, I just put Alice's up there. If you love it, give him a 5-star review. Thank you, everybody who joined us tonight. Thank you, Brandon. Stick around. I'm going to put the outro, but don't leave and too fast. I'll see you soon. And we'll see you next week when Jillian comes on and her Live Seashells. So we will say good night and see you next week, everybody.